Welcome to Both Sides of BeehIves. I'm BeehIves, and I'm really glad you're here. In today's video, we're going to talk about what is both sides of BeehIves anyways. My husband and I recently celebrated our 5th wedding anniversary, and it got me thinking about names. Both Sides of BeehIves is something that I came up with when I first started my therapy practice, BeehIves Therapeutic Services, 4.5 years ago. BeehIves originates as a play on my first name and my new last name, although it doesn't feel so new 5 years now. If you notice on my social media or on my website for my therapy practice, the I in BeehIves is actually capitalized, as my husband's last name is Ives. And so it was a way to incorporate my new family and that connection to my husband, while also being subtle enough that new people could join my team and be involved in my projects without feeling like it was just mine. As someone who has gone by Beth my entire life, it was natural for the nickname Bee to come up. I am actually an Elizabeth with an S, and I was sick of getting it spelt wrong on report cards and by bosses and sometimes even family and friends. And so I have gone by Beth almost exclusively since I was a little kid. And so bees have been something that I have identified with and been gifted and part of my brand long before I even had a brand. I'm lucky that my office is filled with different bee memorabilia from clients and friends, and it brings me such joy to see all of those items and that people think of me whenever they see bees. It also came up for me this morning as I had my back door open so my dog could go outside, and I came downstairs and there was a bee in my kitchen and trying to carefully get it out of the house, and it just made me laugh thinking that my phone case is covered in bees and so is my office, and so it felt very timely to be making this video. A great story that I think summarizes my fondness with bees and really where it originated in my memory is as a tween playing hockey. My nickname happened to be Killer Bee, which I think is more funny than anything because that certainly wasn't my playing style. And so a good memory that always comes to mind for me is I remember accidentally tripping a girl on the other team, and I got sent to the penalty box, and I spent the entire 2 minutes sitting there sobbing because I felt so bad that she had gotten hurt even though I didn't think she'd gotten hurt, and that my team was shorthanded and that it had been an accident, and I felt so misunderstood. And I remember the refs skating past me and just shaking their head thinking, I don't think hockey is for this girl, and I'm pretty sure they were right. As I hit this 5-year mark of having my new last name, having added my husband's to my maiden name, it's got me really thinking about our names and the stories that are connected to them. I am lucky that I had a very short last name to begin with, and so even with my 2 combined last names, it's still the same length as some of my girlfriend's one last name. And it feels like a really strong way of connecting to my ancestors, my Dutch heritage, my relatives who I am close to, despite being forced to experience family estrangement and not having a relationship with a lot of my living relatives who have my name. Back in the Netherlands, I had 4 relatives at one point who all had a version of Elizabeth Arts, and it feels really meaningful for me that I get to carry that on and have that legacy for those people. And I think it's something I've been able to accept, that my name is my own, and while it has these lines that go back to all of these family members who are no longer with us and folks who don't live that far away from me who have my last name that I'm not close with, It is my own. It is something that I have gone by my whole life. It is something that holds a lot of meaning and feels authentic to me, and that is a good enough reason to continue to keep it. In those moments where it is a little bit hard to sit with or to explain to people why I would keep a name that has such conflicting feelings for me, I remind myself that we get to decide what stories we tell and what meaning we place on those events. In my lifetime, I've been called silly shorthands. I've had obtuse rhyming patterns thrown my way. I've been called mean words. And it's about the association and the connotation that we have with those things, how we feel about it, how we experience them, and what we do with it. And so for me, these are names that I have chosen and been intentional about. Sometimes it's our social media handles that we get to choose that might not be our government issued names, but they hold just as much significance to us. And I think I can really relate to folks who have chosen their own name or have their preferred names or are experiencing being dead named by someone where they use a name that is out of date, it is not what they want, it is something they've made clear is not a preference of theirs. And while that experience is so much more than my own, I know the shiver that goes down my back when someone yells Elizabeth at me, because it reminds me of a time when that was only used as disciplinary or to be used by someone in authority. And so I think it only affirms to me that calling people by the names that they want is so important. And it is something that makes us feel close to people and is personal. And it is so much more complex than we might even imagine. As my husband and I begin to consider naming a child in the future and what meaning we want it to hold, who we want it to be a connection to in our child's life, what legacies and qualities are important in someone that we name our child after, it makes me think that naming is one of the biggest things that has an impact on our lives. It is in roll call and attendance and used in job interviews. Every time I have an initial consult with a client, I'm introducing myself. Every time I start one of these videos, I'm saying my name, and it holds a lot of weight. And so having as much choice over it, be it an acronym or be it a pet name or be it a nickname or something that you legally change on documents, as I did in changing my last name, it's something that is very significant for all of us. And getting to think about that in naming my company has also been relevant for me as well. Both sides of BeehIves is, of course, that nod to BeehIves therapeutic services being Beth Arts Lives, but it's also a way to acknowledge that there's duality to myself. I am multifaceted. I am a therapist and a writer, but I'm also a disabled person that is neurodivergent and lives with mental illnesses. I am also my personality and my hobbies and my interests. And I think being able to create space where we get to be all of those things, where we get to share and document our experiences connected to both, was really important to me. And that is where both sides of BeehIves comes from. I love knowing the origin story of people's names and how they've come up with the titles that they go by, what they call their companies, their brands. And so I thought it would be interesting to know what the method to the madness is for myself in coming up with both sides of BeehIves. What I hope it will represent for folks is being able to take up space, being able to be multiple things at once, and being able to really shine in whatever area resonates. Sometimes my videos are about my lived experience. Sometimes it's about topics that have come up for my clients. Other times it's writings that I have written 5 years, 10 years beforehand. I like that it gives me the space to be able to share and relate to people and talk about my story and how I think it might impact others, all from this lens of I am BeehIves and I get to have all of my parts on display.